Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Furman Joust podcast, brought to you live by Ardensburg and Grill here in Central South Carolina. It's been a while since we've been together, but we are back together once again, and we just want to thank God for blessing Mr. Mark right here. Glad to have him back, and everything going pretty well for you. So, I mean,
we're both on this side of the ground, so that's an improvement.
Exactly. And like I said, we want to thank Ardensburg and Grill here in Central South Carolina. Make sure you come by and try the Paladin Burger, which is, of course, one big sponsor of the Furman Joust podcast. You just can't go wrong. The wings, the burgers, you name it, they do it great here at Ardensburg and Grill here in Central South Carolina.
I've been looking forward to my teriyaki burger since about 1 o'clock this afternoon. I'm telling you, it is absolutely fantastic. Of course, you know, they are sponsored, but it's legit. Donnie and them do a great job, and we're very appreciative.
Oh, yeah. Well, Mark, let's get right down to it. The biggest news right now is the men's basketball team. We've been to the press conferences over the last couple of weeks. Since Christmas, they went on a 5-game win streak, and then we've had a back and forth win-loss. Tell us a little bit about this last game.
Well, you know, first of all, that was a huge win the other night. Fall down 18 points in the first half to the Citadel, but you know, they climbed back in it. They got it into overtime. Of course, you know, J.P. McGee's hits another big shot there at the end of the game to send it in overtime, and they get the win, their 5th win in the past 6 games. But, you know, going back to December, you know, first of all, Furman's 12-10, 6-3 in the Southern Conference, 2 games out of first place. But, you know, first, they're healthy at this point, the healthiest they've been all year.
Yes, that's true.
But I promise you, you go back and ask Coach Ritchie, that loss at Tulane took some wind out of the sails. You know, you hear the old adage, don't let a loss beat you twice. I almost feel like that Tulane loss ended up being 3 losses, you know. The way it happened with 0.8 seconds left on the clock, and he hits 3 free throws and a very, very, very questionable call. I just think on a shorthanded team, you really saw it like the opening of the SoCon. They were so shorthanded. UNC Greensboro beat them by 12 points or something like that.
Yep.
So Furman gets their opportunity to right that on Saturday at 2 p.m. with UNC Greensboro coming in.
It's a very tough game, and something me and you talked about before we got on air, and something I heard Coach Ritchie talk about is the number 5 position. He's got the number 4, 1 through 4 positions already set. Everybody's going well, but the 5th position, and he's mentioned it several times, he needs Garrett Haynes to step up and be that number 5 because he is an emotional leader. He said sometimes that's one thing that has been held against him a little bit or he struggles with. But me personally, I think that Garrett Haynes needs to really step up, or if not, we need to see Bowser. We need to see, you know, somebody step up in that position.
Well, right now, when it comes to the 4 position, Alex Williams is definitely carrying the way, 16 points per game. And that's the difference. First of all, Furman lost generational players last year with Slauson and Boutwell. But Garrett Haynes, I don't even know if he's a true 5. I'm not sure I really see a 5 on this team. But you've got 4 of the top 5 scorers are all guards. Garrett Haynes, somewhere about 8 points per game. If Furman is really going to do something here in February, and then, of course, up in Nashville at the Southern Conference Tournament, yes, I think Garrett Haynes definitely has to step up his game because otherwise you have one cold night, boom, you're out.
Exactly, and like you said, the tournament coming up, Furman's jockeying for position right now. It's like he said, it's just making your way, staying healthy, being in the right place at the right time for the tournament. And then it's all up to them. It's not going to what's been played on. I think losing the players that they did early when they did was allowing some of the other guys to get in there. Vander got a chance to get in there and play. Also, Witt got to play a little, get some extra minutes. So they've gotten a lot of their guys. Vanderwall's what I was talking about. They was able to get a lot of their guys a lot of good minutes in and build that depth that they're going to need come tournament time, because if someone fouls out, you got to have somebody that's actually had some playing.
That's right. Looking through the numbers, it looks like they can probably go 8 deep, maybe 9 when it comes to the Southern Conference tournament. But, it's going to be, first of all, the Southern Conference tournament is maybe my favorite conference tournament come March because, I grew up ACC fan where on Fridays of the quarterfinals, the teachers would will in the television set. You got to sit there and watch it. But you look at the depth of this league, Furman had a nice win at home over Sanford. They had won 17 consecutive games coming in, and that's their only Southern Conference loss. They're 19-3. We mentioned UNC Greensboro 7-2. Don't look now, Chattanooga right back there at 7-2. Even though they lost Lamont Paris, what a job he's doing at South Carolina. And then you got Furman, and then just one game behind them are both Western and Wofford. And I think at this point, Western Carolina would have to be the disappointing team in the Southern Conference because I really did think they were going to be the best team in the league, and they started off hot, but they've come back. So it's going to be a fun February of good basketball.
I agree with you. And now we go from men's to the women's. The women have been doing pretty phenomenal. A lot better than what a lot of people said that they was going to be in the league. Now, of course, we've had some issues with Tate being injured, not having a chance to get in there and play as much as and she's been on that threshold of she's back to the old Tate or step back, and I think the injury from last year is what has really held her back in being the top star for Furman that she should be. But at the same time, Jada Session and Sydney, both Sydneys really, they have just really been playing hard, and I think Coach Curtis has gotten a lot out of a group that didn't have a lot of experience going in.
I mean, right now sitting at 2-4 in the Southern Conference, very competitive, 12-10 overall. Like you mentioned, Coach Curtis had to come in. I don't know if you really want to say change the culture because there was a good culture. I mean, look, you lost your basketball coach to the Atlantic Coast Conference to be commissioner of women's basketball. So I mean that's very highly thought of. But the one thing I see from the women is they play hard each night. They're in the games, and you know what? It's year number 1 of Coach Curtis and lay that foundation. And the one thing Furman can do now. I mean, again, just look down the road to Columbia is maybe go out there and find 1 or 2 players in the transfer portal. I mean, because would you ever have thought, first of all, I was bring up a bad memory, going through some stuff last night in the last 6 seconds of the SoCon tournament 2 years ago that I was recording when Boutwell hit the layup to go up 1 or 2, I think, and the kid from Chattanooga hits 40-foot jumper, and I mean, I dropped my phone and cracked my screen, the whole 9 yards.
You didn't want fries, did you?
I thought South Carolina made a great hire in Lamont Paris, but he completely has rebuilt that basketball team in a single season to they're 19-3, just knocked off. So that's the quality of basketball that we see at the Southern Conference level. It may not be Big Ten, it may not be Southeastern Conference or even ACC, but I challenge you in a one-bid league, and everything comes down to that conference tournament at the beginning of March, man. I love Asheville. Make plans now. It's one of the best events out there.
And we will be out there. And one person that I was talking to Coach Curtis about after the game this past week was Sydney Ryan. She is money. And he even said, I've told her so many times, when you got a chance, just shoot the ball because she makes shots everywhere. And it's just getting the ball to her that's been the biggest problem, that they're not as crisp on their passing, but they're getting a lot better. They had their games. Jada Session has been great on rebounding, along with Kate Johnson. So I mean, they've got the tools. It's just getting it at the right time, and I think hopefully by the conference they'll be ready.
And again, you got to look down low. What Jaylene Acker has played pretty well, and you're going to need her to box out. And the great thing is just seeing them gain a little bit of confidence week by week under Coach Curtis in this first year. But I'm telling you, they got a tough matchup coming up. I think they hit the road to Chattanooga this weekend, who again leads the league in women's basketball.
Exactly, and we wish them the best of luck. And also make sure you go to FurmanJoust.com and you'll see all the results from that game. let's go to spring practice coming up February 8th. Football already on. When I saw it, I was like, this is really early. I was like, wow. And then the spring game is going to be March 16th, the purple and white game, and we will be there covering it. What's your thoughts going into this year for Furman football so far? I mean, we've seen the 12 early signees. I've actually spoken to about 8 of them, and we've had them on our podcast. So, what's your thoughts going into this year about Furman?
Well, digging into the numbers, I was really surprised in the fact that, that was a very senior-laden team last year. I was out in Montana, and boy, coming down to that, just jumping there on the extra point or 2-point conversion, they were going for it in the win. There's a lot more talent coming back than I originally realized. There are 31 lettermen returning, but more importantly, 15 players that have started a game or two or whatnot. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of talent coming back. Coach Hendrick seems to get the best out of his players. The one thing that you really need to see is, quarterback step up.
I know who you do.
Yeah, and because Tyler Huff's gone, and he was that senior leader. You can get improvement there. As tough as Tyler Huff was, say that 3 times, man, the number of deep balls they missed on by a foot here and there, and they might not have been so stressed out in some of those games. So I think 15 returning starters or people with starting experience, that's big for the Southern Conference. Number 2, did you notice 2 guys from IMG Academy down in Florida are joining the Furman football team? That's big. IMG is a pay-for-play school, if you will, down there. Nobody really wants to play them anymore because they come in and beat you 50-0. And of course, but to get that kind of recruiting out of IMG Academy just lets you know that coaching staff feels really good about what Clay Hendricks is doing at Furman.
Yep, and they're getting them across country because one of the recruits I spoke to is from Arizona, and he is a very highly touted star. And we're getting a 3-star quarterback out of Florida, and so Furman is really growing its brand, and that's something that a lot of people are talking about. It's no longer the doormat in the Southern Conference. They are actually going out and getting what they need.
Yeah, and they're going to get a lot of publicity heading into the opener on August 31st. They head to Ole Miss, and Lane Kiffin, he's always got something to say. Maybe my favorite follow on, I guess it's X now, not Twitter, is his golden retriever Juice.
Yeah,
absolutely fantastic if you get that. But here's Ole Miss, with Nick Saban now retiring, and they took 14, 15 transfers, and I think the number 1 transfer class overall. I mean, that's going to be a lot of good publicity for Furman heading into that August 31st game. But out of conference, outside of that, they come back with Charleston Southern, who gave them a tough game 2 years ago down in Charleston, and then Stetson. And I think that's an interesting matchup because Stetson's from DeLand, Florida. And I've always told Jeff Cave up in Spartanburg, the assistant commissioner, that's a program, that's a school. If the Southern Conference was going to expand, they really should look at Stetson. And then finally, Furman and I think Wofford both have back-to-back. They both played William and Mary this year, and they both have home and homes with William and Mary. And when I think of the heritage of Furman, it really matches up with William and Mary. And you remember Jimmy Laycock was the coach there forever. So that's kind of the away game, other than Ole Miss, that I would circle on the schedule and try to get up there, because if you can't have a good time in Williamsburg, Virginia, with all the history and the restaurants and everything, that's going to be a fantastic road trip.
Oh yeah, it sure will, and looking forward to talking to more of the players as we get closer, and we'll be having some interviews. We'll also be up at spring practice and taking some videos, so just keep check with us, and we'll have it on our YouTube channel. Now we need to go to lacrosse, which is something that'll be starting on February 14th. First game in Paladin Stadium, and guess who they're bringing in? A second-year ranked Clemson team, and that's going to be, if you definitely got to make sure. I know it's Valentine's Day, guys. Take your lady to the women's lacrosse game. It is something. My first lacrosse game was the Clemson last year. I have much respect for the lacrosse.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
it's unreal.
to me, it's kind of like soccer to a certain extent. You run up and down the field for 90 minutes or however long you touch the ball for 60 seconds out of that 90 minutes. But women's lacrosse is really gaining some traction. Lacrosse is probably the hottest sport in the Southeast. People don't realize just up I-85, we got a D2 power at Limestone, won a couple of national championships. And then Clemson just last week opened up the only women's lacrosse building in the country. I mean, you should have seen those girls when they walked in. So Furman's got that heritage. They're a little bit in front of it. That's going to be a big game because I think Clemson's ranked somewhere in the top 12, top 15.
Exactly.
In year number 2 of women's lacrosse. It is a fun game. It's not as physical as the men's game. You know what I mean? They don't have pads, shoulder pads and all. Not as much physical contact, but what these girls can do with flipping that thing, it's a lot of fun. I didn't realize how much fun it was until I actually went and checked it out.
Oh yeah, it's great. Definitely got. We did an interview with the new head coach. Interim head coach was their trainer, believe it or not. And she took over, and we had a great interview with her, and she was talking about all the good players that are on her team. A couple of them are, of course, they play in the Big South. The Southern Conference does not have a lacrosse league, quote, but them and Wofford are in the Big South tournament. So definitely go by. February 14th, Clemson versus Furman at Paladin Stadium. Make sure you check. Paladins will be playing at the stadium this year instead of out at the soccer field, so go out and check them out. Today, men's tennis fell to DePaul 4-1. Men's tennis has been doing pretty well this year. They go to Army next this weekend.
Who's up at Army? Mike Buddy, former Furman athletic director,
exactly.
Left Furman to go to West Point. Share a quick story on that for Furman fans. I don't think Mike was really interested in that job, but he said, how do you turn down West Point for an interview? And he's like, man, I was on campus 10 minutes and I knew I was taking this job. What a unique situation. And he wasn't looking to get out of Furman. He just said it's an opportunity you can't pass, with those cadets and all of that stuff. So the other thing is, got softball season about ready to crank up. I believe February 15th is the beginning of the season. And you're talking about, it's funny, Furman was picked 5th in softball preseason poll with the preseason player of the year.
Exactly.
And some other players that are heralded. So, I mean, it must be a really deep softball league when it comes to, but that's when spring's just around the corner. Spring football on February 8th might be a little too early for me, but I mean, get out on campus. One thing I figured out here in the last year, those student athletes do a great job on Furman's campus supporting
Yes, they
each
do.
other.
They do. Every game that I've been at, there's a section I can see the women's basketball team, the soccer team. Women's soccer team comes to tennis. They come to basketball. They're at every event. Big supporters of all their fellow athletes. And like I said, it's when you go out and you see the student section growing and growing, it makes you feel good about Furman because they was talking about how 7 or 8 years ago, Furman was only winning 7 games of basketball. They was giving away free food just to get people in the stadium or in the arena. And now they're fixing to really renovate Timmons Arena to a beautiful. I've seen some of the renderings. If you haven't, go onto their Twitter account. It's got a couple of the pictures of the renderings. It's going to be just an awesome place to go play basketball.
$40 million renovation to Timmons Arena to make it a basketball only facility. The story on that back in the day is they were going to copy the Charlotte Hornets practice facility and get all these concert like Jars of Clay, Christian band, and just did not pan out. And it's a very weird environment when there's that many black curtains like hiding stuff. But I checked it out last week, and you looked in the stands and there was like 4,500 in there. And when this thing gets done, with some loge seating and boxes and all that, it will probably lift Furman. it will put them in the same conversation with Wofford for best arena in the Southern Conference. Jerry Richardson Indoor Stadium at Wofford, that might be the Taj Mahal of Southern Conference. But the Furman basketball, going back to Nico Medved and now Bob Ritchie, they need a better home court advantage.
Yep.
And we were talking about the student athletes supporting each other. I love looking down there and seeing Josh Harris and all his buddies on the front row down on the right, supporting the team, even giving the opponent a little bit of grief at times.
Oh, yeah.
Cornerbacks don't talk a little bit, wide receivers don't talk a little bit, but it's almost like at times the crowd feeds off that, when it all gets started. Kind of began with the lacrosse team back in the day.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Furman gave up the lacrosse program, but every single game they'd show up dressed in some type of theme. One game it was all Hawaiian shirts. I think they were trying to be Tom Selleck from Magnum PI. And that kind of started things. Now Timmons Arena is a legitimate home environment for Furman. It just needs to be renovated.
Yeah, and that's fixing to happen. They're fixing to get that going. So definitely get out, support Furman, support these athletes. They are just doing a great job.
Let me ask you, you've been around a little bit closer, with Coach Hendricks and the wrap-up. I haven't seen him since we were out in Missoula. And, it seems like Furman came through the transfer portal all right this year. It's something that's got to be fixed, because when you see Nick Saban hang it up at Alabama just saying this year was brutal, I don't know if I can do this again, or more importantly, 3 days ago, Boston College head football coach Jeff Hafley gave up his job and went and took the defensive coordinator's position at the Green Bay Packers. And he said, why? He goes, college football coaching is now about NIL, recruiting and re-recruiting your team. There's not that much time to teach. There's not that much time to coach. And we're going to see this happen all across the game of football if they can't pull it in. I know Furman, it sucks now because the FBS teams come through and try to mine out who they can as far as maybe a missed recruit. But I think it speaks volumes when a guy like Josh Harris, wide receiver, bring him up again. You can't convince me he can't step onto the field at Clemson. He can't step on the field in Columbia. I'm sure he got offers, and guess what? He told me none of it will read Furman University across the top of the degree. And that's a kid that's got his priorities right. And that's why I love this level of sports.
Yes.
There's still a little bit of purity to it, if you will.
I agree with you. And Jim Harbaugh left to go to the NFL.
Yeah.
There's a lot of coaches that basically said, we just can't deal with it. We don't know what. There's just no. The NCAA just let it happen, and they didn't put anything. Now they're trying to go after Tennessee, and Tennessee's basically told them, listen.
Tennessee's president went, full ballistic the other day, going, "This is y'all's fault, not ours."
Exactly.
And I think, in all honesty, because it affects Furman, we are a Furman podcast, but they got to get this in control in the next 2 years, or, I would even take the small step of you can transfer once and that's it, but make them sit out a year, and think about it.
That was how it was supposed to start.
Alabama lost a wide receiver to Texas after Nick Saban retired. And the first thing Isaiah Bond did when he got to Austin, Texas, was hit the Maserati dealership. Come on now. I've got a friend, Adrian Branch, who played for the University of Maryland, that's coming into the area to speak in April, and he's like, there's no bond like we had back in the day, because you walk in these locker rooms and the first thing they do is they pick up their phone and do it.
Exactly.
So they don't have that camaraderie. And that's what I love about what's going on at Furman right now, is you just look and they all support each other. It's a good time. The fan experience is done well. The prices aren't too bad.
Exactly.
At the concession
Pricing,
stand.
yeah.
I mean, shoot, where was I the other day? Got a burger and a drink, it was like $10, and I just went, really? That's where we are right now? So yeah, you can go to Furman, and it's not an expensive day, it's fun, and again, a lot of positivity on that campus right now.
And great seats.
Yeah.
There's not a bad seat in the house. Even the very top is not. It's not that bad. So
One last thing. I know we got a few minutes left. Furman's got a very good voice of the Furman Paladins, Dan Scott, and
Yeah.
I'd just like to send some thoughts with him.
Exactly.
You know, I think he's doing the game Saturday, and then everything for people that don't know. And he had a grandchild that didn't make it. You know, and Becky, his daughter, wonderful person, and you know, it really hits hard, and you know, Dan's done a lot for Furman since taking that job over, and he and Tom Vanoy's been doing a great job filling in for him. But you know, I look forward to being a grandparent someday. I can't imagine, you know, losing a grandchild like that, you know, that didn't make it after being born, and just want to wish Dan Scott and the Scott family as a whole, you know, our thoughts and prayers are with them.
I agree with you totally. Dan's a great man. He's always been great to me, and you know, great to you. And
I think he's up for like FCS play-by-play of the year, or somewhere in that recommendation. And you know, he got a ton of vocal or publicity, if you will, back in the NCAA tournament last year when Furman pulled off that big win against Virginia. And I mean, I saw it on ESPN and all. And again, those are the highs of doing things, and unfortunately, he's experienced the lows of life here recently.
Yeah, well, we definitely send our prayers out to Dan Scott and his family, and we wouldn't know the pain that you're going through, but we appreciate you and everything you do for Furman, do for us, do for everybody that you're in contact with. Dan is always, you know, he's also he goes to other churches and he speaks. So if you are looking for a speaker for your church, get in touch with Dan.
Grand Slam Ministries.
Grand
actually,
Slam.
you know, that was one of the nonprofits my wife and I chose to support.
Yep,
Back in December.
we definitely want to send Dan our prayers and love.
All right, so what are you looking for here in the next 2 weeks? Furman basketball obviously takes the stage as we get into March Madness. What are you looking for starting tomorrow at 2 p.m. against UNC Greensboro?
I'm looking. No, we're talking about the men. Right?
Men.
Yeah. I want to see Garrett Heen pull out a double-double, but more importantly, I want him to be able to do what I know he can do, and that's just play, be loose, and not let fouls get to him. Because that's one thing that I've noticed in some games when he gets fouled or he fouls somebody, it's like his composure. It's getting that composure. We know he can do it. There's nothing wrong with being excited when you get that dunk or when you get that steal or whatever the case may be, but just honing yourself in at the right time, I think, is the biggest thing. And I think if he gets that under control, one thing we've seen is when he's got that under control, he is a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, and he can step out and hit a big three-pointer from time to time.
Yeah.
I agree with you on that. The other thing is, see how this guard rotation does. I mean, you combine what Marcus Foster does with 19 points per game, J.P. Pegues with 16, down to P.J. Smith at 10.5, and Carter Witt's the next highest scorer. Just hope that those guys stay healthy, stay in rhythm, because they're going to have to make shots to overcome the lack of inside game. And it can be done, absolutely. But I give Bob Ritchie, his name is known. I was up in North Georgia dealing with some stuff the other day, and the guy goes, "Man, I love Furman's basketball coach, Bob Ritchie." Wow, and that was in Blairsville, Georgia, just yesterday. So. Great time. So glad to be back with you, Jay.
Great to have you back.
Here's the thing. We're all going to try to all get better together. How about
Amen. That? We do appreciate everybody that watches us, that listens to us, and thank you for all you do. Also, we want to give everybody here at Arden's Burger Grill here in Central South Carolina a big shout out and a thank you for hosting us, giving us great food. Folks, if you haven't seen it, teriyaki burger and fries.
Yes, sir.
The Paladin burger. We're fixing to chow down, get ready to eat. Also, we want to thank Pepsi Cola. We also want to thank Upstate Physical Therapy in Anderson, South Carolina. And also, where can they find you each and every week?
Straight Up Sports. My podcast host and I are getting ready to go on a national app. And but most importantly, right behind us here on this banner, go get your tickets at FurmanPaladins.com and get out there and support these kids.
Yeah, I agree with you. We thank you for listening. This is Jay and Mark.
See you.
See you.